A structural collision is underway in the U.S. economy. It has nothing to do with the Federal Reserve, AI hype, or geopolitical headlines. This event is biological. It is demographic, and its trajectory is a mathematical certainty, locked in by birth rates from 70 years ago. We have now officially entered the period of peak retirement, the absolute apex of the baby boomer demographic wave cresting into the years of highest medical consumption. This surge in completely inelastic demand is on a direct collision course with a healthcare system that is already fractured, chronically understaffed, and financially brittle. While Wall Street remains mesmerized by the transient and speculative narratives of GLP-1 drugs, it is fundamentally mispricing the most powerful and durable investment theme for the next decade: the imminent explosion of pricing power in essential medical services and devices. The thesis is brutally simple. The one sector of the economy whose demand is guaranteed to accelerate through any economic environment is simultaneously facing a catastrophic supply crisis. For the discerning investor, this presents a rare, asymmetric opportunity to position for a multi-year supercycle that is still in its earliest innings. To grasp the sheer unstoppable force of this demographic wave, we must first absorb the numbers, because they are staggering and their implications are not fully priced in by the market. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's latest decennial projections, the number of Americans aged 65 and older will surge from 58 million in 2022 to over 73 million by 2030. This is not a Wall Street forecast subject to economic variables. It is a simple accounting of births that happened between 1946 and 1964. The financial implications of this demographic shift are profound and create a powerful, unshakable baseline for our thesis. Let's look at the official data from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services National Health Expenditure accounts. The average annual healthcare expenditure for an American age 65 or older is approximately $19,000. For a person in the prime working age cohort of 25 to 44, that number is closer to $6,000. This is a Travergule and 6x multiplier. As the single largest and wealthiest generation in American history moves into its period of highest medical need, it will unleash a torrent of spending that is almost entirely non-discretionary and inelastic. In a recession, a household might delay buying a new F-150 from Ford or a new iPhone from Apple, causing cyclical revenues to plummet. But that same household does not delay a loved one's heart valve replacement from Edwards Lifesciences or a cancer therapy regimen from a hospital. This creates a baseline of demand growth that is completely insulated from the economic cycle, a quality that will become invaluable in the potentially slowing and uncertain economy of 2026. But this unstoppable wave of demand is only half of the equation. The truly explosive part of this thesis, the element that creates immense, structural, and non-negotiable pricing power, is that this demand is crashing into a system experiencing a catastrophic supply shock. I am talking about a severe, structural, and worsening labor shortage that is unlike anything seen in other sectors of the U.S. economy. Let's look at the hard data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Their 2023 Occupational Outlook Handbook projects that the U.S. will need to fill nearly 200,000 registered nursing positions every single year for the next decade just to keep up with replacements and new demand. The situation for physicians is just as dire. A 2024 report from the Association of American Medical Colleges, AAMC, projects a total physician shortfall of up to 124,000 by 2034, with a particularly acute shortage in the primary care doctors who are the gatekeepers of the entire system. The reasons for this are a perfect storm: a massive wave of retirements from an aging medical workforce. The great irony is that boomer doctors are retiring, just as boomer patients need them most, coupled with epidemic levels of burnout in the post-pandemic era. Surveys from Medscape consistently show that nearly 50% of U.S. physicians report feelings of burnout, leading many to reduce hours or leave the profession entirely. This is Econ 101 at its most brutal. A vertical, inelastic demand curve is intersecting with a leftward shifting supply curve. The only possible outcome is a violent and sustained increase in the price of medical services. Hospitals will be forced to pay exorbitant rates for travel nurses from publicly traded staffing firms like AMN Healthcare. Wait times for specialist appointments will lengthen, creating a burgeoning private pay concierge medicine market for those who can afford to jump the queue. And the wages for every type of healthcare professional will be bid up aggressively. This is the engine of a specific, potent kind of inflation, and it is an engine that cannot be turned off by the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. This brings us to the great folly of the current market narrative. Wall Street, in its infinite capacity for chasing shiny objects and simple, easily digestible stories, has become singularly obsessed with one narrative in the healthcare space: the GLP-1 weight loss drugs. The spectacular rise of Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk is a fantastic story of innovation, but it is a narrow one. In its obsession with the battle for obesity, the market has developed a dangerous case of tunnel vision, completely ignoring the far larger, more certain, and more profitable supercycles that are unfolding in the unsexy, less glamorous, but fundamentally more critical corners of the healthcare universe. The first is the Alzheimer's epidemic. This is the true demographic and fiscal time bomb. According to the Alzheimer's Association's 2025 Facts and Figures report, over 6.5 million Americans are currently living with the disease. By 2050, as the boomer generation ages into their 82nds and 92nds, that number is projected to soar to nearly 13 million. The financial cost is astronomical. The same report projects the total cost of care for Alzheimer's patients in the U.S. will exceed $1 trillion annually in the next decade, with much of that cost falling on the taxpayer-funded Medicare and Medicaid systems, and a significant portion related to long-term care and assisted living services. This is a crisis that will create a desperate, multi-decade, non-cyclical demand for diagnostics, like new blood tests and PET scans, novel therapies, and, most importantly, the picks and shovels of care facilities, home health aides, and specialized nursing services. The second, and perhaps most immediately investable, supercycle is the wear and tear economy. The human body is a magnificent machine, but it is a machine that wears out over time. People are not just living longer. They are living longer with chronic conditions that require constant medical intervention and replacement parts. The demand for orthopedic procedures like total hip and knee replacements is set to explode. Data from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons shows a direct, almost exponential correlation between age and the probability of joint replacement surgery. Similarly, the demand for cardiovascular devices, pacemakers, stents, defibrillators, transcatheter heart valves is non-negotiable for an aging population suffering from coronary artery disease and other heart conditions. These are not elective procedures. They are essential for sustaining and improving the quality of life. This complex, fragmenting, and overwhelmed system creates the third and largest opportunity: the rise of the system architects. As millions of newly retired boomers flood the incredibly complex Medicare and Medicare Advantage systems, the administrative burden of managing their care, navigating payments between a web of providers and payers, and optimizing health outcomes becomes a monumental task. This is a problem that only a handful of scaled, data-driven, technologically advanced organizations can solve, creating a powerful and widening competitive moat that smaller players simply cannot cross. So, how does this demographic thesis translate into a powerful portfolio strategy for a potentially turbulent 2026? It positions specific subsectors of healthcare as the ultimate defensive fortress. In a recession, S&P 500 earnings could fall 10-20% as consumer demand for cars, electronics, and travel evaporates. But the demand for dialysis treatments from a company like DaVita, or cancer therapies, or surgical procedures will remain ruthlessly constant. In an inflationary environment, most companies see their margins compressed by rising input costs. But the healthcare sector, facing inelastic demand and structural supply shortages, has the unique ability to pass on those costs, and then some. It possesses immense structural pricing power. It is the one sector that is not just resilient to, but in many ways benefits from, the very macroeconomic anxieties that plague the rest of the market. Of course, no thesis is complete without rigorously challenging it. The single greatest risk to this entire framework is government intervention. The bear case, and it is a valid one, is that the U.S. government, facing a Medicare system that the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, projects, will see its hospital insurance trust fund become insolvent within the next decade, will be forced to impose draconian price controls. We have already seen the first shot across the bow with the drug price negotiation provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, of 2022. This is a real risk, and it is precisely why a naive, broad-based investment in a generic healthcare ETF like the XLV is a flawed and dangerous strategy. The IRA's power is surgically concentrated on high-cost, single-source branded drugs that have been on the market for a long time. This makes the big pharma companies, which are already facing a wave of patent cliffs on their blockbuster products, uniquely and profoundly vulnerable. However, the government's ability to directly control the price of a surgeon's time in a free market, or the cost of a hospital bed when there are no beds available, or the price of a life-sustaining patented medical device that has no generic equivalent, is far more limited, both politically and practically. The pricing power is most durable and least politically toxic in the services and devices segments of the market, not in the pharmaceutical industry. This brings us to the actionable, sophisticated playbook. This is not about buying a generic healthcare ETF and hoping for the best. It is about a surgical allocation of capital to the specific subsectors and companies that are best positioned to thrive in this environment of guaranteed demand and constrained supply. First, systematically underweight the patent cliff gamblers. The business model of big pharma is becoming increasingly challenging. Companies like Pfizer, Merck, and Bristol-Myers Squibb are facing a loss of exclusivity on multi-billion-dollar drugs that form the bedrock of their earnings. For example, Keytruda for Merck, Eliquis for Bristol-Myers, Stelara for J&J. Their future is a high-stakes, binary gamble on their R&D pipelines, with no guarantee of success. While they may find the next blockbuster, the risk-reward profile is profoundly unfavorable when compared to the mathematical certainty of the demographic demand trend that benefits other parts of the healthcare ecosystem. Second, go long the razor and blade kings of medtech. The most direct and least politically vulnerable beneficiaries of the wear and tear economy are the medical device and equipment companies. They operate on a classic razor and blade model, where the initial installation of a surgical system or diagnostic platform creates a long tail of high-margin, recurring revenue from proprietary consumables, software, and services. The undisputed kings of this space are companies like Stryker, the market share leader in orthopedic implants for hips and knees, or Intuitive Surgical, ISRG, whose Da Vinci surgical robots have created a near monopoly in the market for minimally invasive procedures, generating predictable, high-margin revenue from every procedure performed. Or Boston Scientific, BSX, a leader in essential cardiovascular devices like pacemakers, defibrillators, and stents. These companies sell the indispensable, non-discretionary tools of modern medicine, and their pricing power is immense and durable. Third, buy the system architects of managed care, the single best-positioned company to profit from the overwhelming complexity of the aging crisis is United Health Group, UNH. To simply call it a health insurer is a massive understatement that misses the core of the investment thesis. It is a two-headed behemoth. The United Healthcare division is the largest private health insurer in the country, giving it enormous scale and negotiating power with providers. But the real jewel, the engine of future growth, is its Optum Health Services division. Optum runs clinics and surgery centers. Optum Health manages pharmacy benefits for millions of Americans. Optum Rx, and most importantly, provides the data analytics and technology that help the entire fractured system manage costs and outcomes. Optum Insight. As the system groans under the weight of millions of new Medicare patients, United Health, through Optum, becomes the indispensable architect and toll booth operator, profiting from every transaction and every data point in the healthcare journey. The key leading indicators to watch going forward are not on Wall Street, they are in the real economy. Monitor the monthly JOLTS, job openings and labor turnover survey reports from the BLS, specifically for the healthcare and social assistance sector, for any worsening of the nurse and physician vacancy rates. Watch the quarterly procedure volume reports from major hospital operators like HCA Healthcare. These are a direct read on the wear and tear economy. And pay close attention to the annual Medicare Advantage reimbursement rate announcements from CMS, as this directly impacts the profitability and pricing power of the managed care giants like UNH. The market is a forward-looking mechanism, but sometimes its vision is clouded by short-term obsessions. While it chases the fleeting and speculative narratives of artificial intelligence and GLP-1 second, a demographic supercycle, silent, predictable, and unstoppable, gathers strength. The information presented here is intended to serve as a comprehensive, data-driven framework for understanding this profound, underappreciated shift. Your role as a prudent, long-term investor is to decide whether your portfolio is structured to profit from the speculative fads of the next 6 months or the demographic certainties of the next 6 years. The critical question I leave with you is this. In a world of increasing uncertainty, what is the value of a mathematical certainty? Share your analysis in the comments below.